Okay, I see on my screen that we are being live streamed, and thank you.
Because I have to get the recording started. Hold on one second.
I see. There we go. Now I think we're live and we're recording, so I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the LAVTA Project and Services Committee meeting, and okay, I think now we're really rolling. Could we have a roll call, please? Or not? We've stopped recording. And we're back. I think that several of us are experiencing a little difficulties today. So, Tone, I think you might be the host right now.
Shows that I am. Okay. Now Jennifer's the host.
Jennifer's back. There we go. Okay, are we ready for a roll call?
Yes, I believe so. I don't know why it keeps kicking me out. Okay.
Okay.
Director Bonanno.
Here.
Director Brown.
Here.
Director Halbert.
Here.
Chair Josie.
Here.
We have a
Okay.
quorum.
There we go. Thank you. Do we have anybody who would like to speak? This is the time that we are open to the public for comments on for anything that is on our agenda or off our agenda.
I do not see any attendees in this meeting, and I didn't receive any comments via email.
Okay, we will move on then to item number 4, which is minutes from our last meeting on December 29th. Any comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second, Halbert.
Thank you. We have a roll call, please.
Yes, Vice Chair Bonanno.
Aye.
Director Brown.
Aye.
Director Halbert.
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye. Thank you.
Motion passes.
Appreciate it. Item 5 is our zero emission bus master transition plan, excuse me. And I'm assuming we have a report today.
We do. I'll kind of kick off the comments, hand it to Tone. He has a few comments, and then I think Savannah and Nikki have a presentation to show. And, I'd just like to kind of kick off the comments by saying it's a pretty, momentous day. It's really the moment for the P&S committee to consider a hydrogen as the fuel path for the agency. And we're hoping you feel comfortable with that. If not, today won't be the day, but hopefully real soon will be the day. But what's at stake and what will, move forward from this meeting, which is, something to get excited about, is obviously the board as a whole considering hydrogen as your fuel path for your bus system of the future. And it also tees up a grant that we've been working on, night and day for the state to fund your Atlantis maintenance facility with all the hydrogen bells and whistles in it so we can maintain hydrogen buses, and also your hydrogen fueling station at Atlantis, so that basically moving forward, all of your purchases with future buses can be hydrogen and you'll have the infrastructure ready to go. And it also, I think, board member Hobart brought up at the last meeting that I attended where we talked about hydrogen, just the importance of taking a leadership role with hydrogen in the region and even the mega region. There's a lot of planning being done right now in regard to hydrogen. There's both from a station planning perspective and a purchasing of fuel planning perspective. And so if it's your desire and we move forward with a hydrogen path, certainly it empowers your staff to go in and have more stature and leadership with that. So with that, I'll kind of pass the baton over to Tone for a few comments, and then we'll have the presentation.
Thanks, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. So as you recall, we had a very robust and productive discussion at the December P&S committee meeting Since that time, we made a quick stop at the January 10th Livermore City Council meeting. The presentation that Savannah and I gave was very well received. And Vice Chair Bonanno, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the direction for staff from the City Council is to full steam ahead with hydrogen. Also, during that time, staff was working with CT to incorporate the feedback received from the last PNS meeting. So we hope that the additional material in this presentation address your question and requests. So with that, I'll like to reintroduce Savannah to the committee.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me again. I'll try not to blow the power fuse this time. I don't have any antics planned, so bear with me as I get my PowerPoint up. All right, are you all seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. So this will start to look very familiar, and as Tone mentioned, super happy to accommodate the request for more information from the last meeting, but I'll go ahead and cover everything again, just kind of high level what we're here for and all the general concepts we're spinning, because there are a lot, and then talk through some of the major ideas related to the questions you all had from the last meeting. So as you all know, it's critical to perform this transition function and do it in a really smart and intelligent way to support the needs of LAVTA's service. And so we're doing that to meet this regulation, the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation by CARB. So remember that just the purchasing is mandated, not the actual transition, but we do try to aim to have a 100% zero emission fleet by the end of the transition scenario and projections that we do. So a reminder on the buying process that it actually starts in 2026. And for 3 years, there's only a fourth of the vehicles purchased, and any purchase has to be zero emission. But then it quickly jumps to 2029. So by having a plan now, you all are really well set up to manage this regulation. And then again, we consider 2 zero emission technologies that are mature enough to meet the moment for this regulation. So on the left, there's the battery electric bus and some high level concepts related to that technology, as well as on the right, there's the fuel cell electric bus and some of those immediate considerations for those vehicles and electing this technology. And so just a reminder that we do consider the fuel cell bus capable of replacing a diesel or regular internal combustion engine vehicle one-to-one, where in a battery electric, we consider that there's not enough energy demand or energy on board for all of the service that LAVTA provides. So you may have to, you have less of a one-to-one replacement or performance metric with a battery electric bus, but it can be done with some other accommodations like on-route charging. A couple of reasons the fuel cell is nice is because it has comparable fueling times as well as operations. It's not a plug-in, it's an actual fuel that the vehicle receives, so that can be operationally beneficial. The fuel cost is moderately higher, however, and the bus cost is 70% higher, which are 2 things that kind of count against it. Infrastructure really shines here, so I'll go over that slide next. Greater resilience, hydrogen supply, the molecule is typically more available in a grid down situation than electricity is for obvious reasons. And then something else is there are just fewer entrants in the market. And so that's something to consider in the purchasing. BEVs, on the other hand, fuel costs can be highly variable, less predictable for your operations. A little bit more cost-effective vehicle, but some difficulty in infrastructure and footprint as you get into a larger scaling. Referencing that scaling here again, there is a high entry cost to buying that station for fuel cell, but the luck of it is you only have to do it once, and then you can accommodate. If you size your station appropriate to your future demand, you can accommodate growth much more easily than having a construction crew on site every time you need to expand your fueling. The opposite is true of battery electric, wherein each time you have a charger, a bus purchase, you'll have to work on a charger purchase as well. So we talked a little bit about the actual service that overnight depot charge battery electric bus can perform. This is our baseline kind of technology, zero emission technology service feasibility. So with a bus that just charges overnight, Today, we think it can accomplish 58% of the routing, and this is a market average battery capacity, as we have updated that to what's presently available. In about 10 years, we're looking at a few more, based on just technology improvements, about 62% of the routes become accessible with this technology. And then in 2040, at the end, we're still missing, unable to serve about 22% of LAVTA's routes without another technology option. So on-route charging or another vehicle kind of route pairing or route sharing there. So remember, this is all just with a battery electric bus. We do assume that a fuel cell does have the range to accommodate all of the service. So next slide is a reminder of the scenarios we're considering. So to meet 100% of service, a depot and on-route solution would be required if you were to buy battery electric buses. And then you could also accommodate your kind of missing service with a mixed fleet. So you used a depot battery electric charged bus, depot charged battery electric bus when your services have a lower energy demand or your routing has lower energy demand, and then a fuel cell electric bus to supplement those harder routes and harder energy. And then the next one is just a full fuel cell fleet, which is what is under consideration today. And that really solves a lot of your duty cycle problems. So this one you all have seen before. It is just a comparison of the cost over the 20 years of the transition. So a pretty large expenditure. We do this because it helps inform the funding. So what you would need to make a zero emission fleet happen. And so we have the baseline is business as usual if you continue to buy diesel hybrids. So that's why the cost remains lower. And then we have first the battery electric at 201. The mixed fleet is at the same costing there, and then a little bit higher projections, 6.5% higher for a fuel cell fleet. And most of that is due to the cost of the vehicle itself. Another thing to remember here is that maintenance, the fuel cost here is a bit higher in this graphic, and we're going to talk about how nuanced that fuel price can be next. And that should answer some of the questions from last time and really address kind of the variation you may see in the market with something like this. So the next slide is talking about this sensitivity. So what we did since last time is we tried to graphically demonstrate what we expect the future of fueling may be. And there's a couple ways we calculate this. So today we're using a $7.95 per kilogram price. And we convert that into cost per mile. So a lot of this you're going to see as cost per mile. And the reason we use that metric and not a price per kilogram or price per gallon is because actually each of these components, like diesel or gasoline and hydrogen, they actually pack a different punch energetically. Hydrogen is much more efficient. So using a cost per mile is actually a better apples to apples comparison than using a metric that they don't really fit in, that you don't measure hydrogen in. So the highest cost is 95 cents per mile, and then we have the lowest cost forecasted at negative 5 cents. And the reason we get that negative is from actual offsets from LCFS credit revenue. So if you participate in the LCFS program and you use the absolute greenest negative carbon intense hydrogen that's on the market, so that's dairy gas reformation, you use that, you will actually make money off of your fuel. And that's a really interesting prospect. And then the next one is electricity is also eligible for low carbon fuel standard credit revenue. And because California's grid is already slightly renewable, or a portion is renewable, you can benefit from that today. So we have a low cost there at 2 cents per mile. And then in the future, we actually project that it could get to 84 cents per mile. And that's if the LCFS credit revenue goes away and PG&E passes on its $10 billion upgrades to the end user, which we are expecting them to do related to fire safety. And so that's factored in there as well. Now, just to disclaim, we don't know how PG&E intends to pass this cost on, but it is something to consider. And then the next thing that's really important is that LCFS credit value is projected to decrease at a rate of 3% per year. And so that's what it has in the past. That's what our broker or the member, CT member who is a broker has indicated this trend for us. And so that's what we use. They're the experts. And then another thing to remember is to really get that low cost per mile, for the for low cost per mile for the electricity, you would have to purchase RECs, so renewable energy credits as well. So just a couple things there, and that's going to make more sense in the graphic we have up next. So hopefully this one helps kind of chart the fuel sensitivity that we've provided. So in the beginning, you can see there's the cost of diesel. So we have your present cost per mile. We get this data from Michael and Tone. And then the future cost is the inflation that we expect diesel to have. Now, we don't put in anything, any kind of cost, penalty that might come from environmental legislation. That's not factored in because we don't know that that will happen, but we do expect it to increase. The interesting part about the others too is that your pricing could fall anywhere in the range of the light green for electricity or the light blue for hydrogen. So you'll see on the left side, we have our present cost. So we have our present electricity cost per mile on this, both the dark green left dot and the light green one. And we're demonstrating the LCFS revenue and REC purchases in that bottom lighter green line. And then we have projected for inflation and upgrades on that further on the right-hand side. Those two dots contain that. So this is just to demonstrate how variable the fuel pricing could be, but that it is contained. And we do expect kind of lower ends of this, especially with the incentives that exist. Hydrogen, on the other hand, kind of has an opposite trend. So we're seeing high costs today because there are very few folks operating, and we'll talk about that a little more. So we have a high present cost, and we want to show you with LCFS engagement and without. So if you are using these credits and have the greenest possible hydrogen, you've got that negative represented by the light blue dot on the left. That's available today. And then on the other hand, we do expect the LCFS value to reduce. So we do show a trend going upward, even with engagement with the program. But on the bright side, without engaging in the program, you're still looking at a downward trend in the costing for hydrogen, just because market play and production will imminently increase. So that was a lot here. I'm going to pause for any questions on these.
Do we have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so we did a sensitivity. We wanted you to see the cumulative cost of the transition with kind of worst case and best case scenarios for each technology. And so on the left side, we have a fully battery electric fleet with the lowest fuel costs we could imagine today. And so that one is there, and you can see fuel is represented by the burgundy. So we're looking at 7 million expenditure over the period of the transition in fuel. And then the highest cost, so with inflation and these upgrades, we're looking at 31 million in fuel cost with a higher price electricity. For the fuel cell electric bus, the lowest cost is with that with LCFS credits revenue being passed on. So we have a negative cost per mile for the fuel. And so that expenditure becomes quite small. And then in the fuel cell, that worst case scenario, that's actually today's price, which we don't think will last very long. That's $7.95 per kilogram. And that's actually represented in this last bar by 30 million. So this one is just interesting to see kind of the variation here. And we don't really assign probability or likelihood to these scenarios happening. But we can recommend, or rather say that we do expect the lowest costs to have for the fuel cell to be available and very potential or likely for possible for LAVTA. All right, so we wanted to also talk a little bit about the actual financial risk to LAVTA. And while we're not able to kind of say what will happen with the market and your dollars itself, we can look at a little bit of what LAVTA might be on the hook for with the support that exists in the market and in the space today. And so we do expect MTC to hold their expected share of 80% of the vehicle purchase expense, and federal grants can offer up to 90% cost share for infrastructure. So assuming that those are in place, we can talk a little bit about the actual price of each vehicle. So we took out that proportion, and over the whole transition plan with MTC support, we're looking at only about 30 million over 20 years being out of pocket for the capital purchase of the buses for fuel cell, and 27.4 for battery electric. And remember that that's just because the price of battery electric's a lot lower than fuel cell at the moment. So we reduced those out of, or we took them out of the total cumulative cost of the transition, which makes these a little more digestible. And you can see that there's a lot of parity between the technologies. You know, one with the rounding and kind of extrapolation required with the finances here over the period, these really are very closely tied from a financial standpoint, and really comparable. So choosing the technology and based on what is really suitable for LAVTA's operations and desires as an entity definitely matters, maybe has more impact than the costing, because they're pretty much apples to apples here. So just some things to address that kind of risk concept related to financial responsibility.
I have a quick question. I know you said you don't assign probabilities, but if I'm understanding the last chart, if we go back to that one just real quick, we were just looking at, if I'm understanding the chart with the fuel cost lines, it is more likely that the question was actually on the slide we were looking at. It's more likely that if we were to choose the battery electric option, that we would actually be looking at the higher fuel cost scenario than if we choose the battery electric scenario. If I can paraphrase what you said, because of the wildfire pass through from PG&E and demand on the electric grid and things like that, versus the technologies improvements for hydrogen and the new hydrogen producers coming online and things like that. Is that a fair assumption? If you're just looking at the two separately, not trying to compare the two, we just looked at battery electric and said, you know, we're probably more likely over time to be looking at the higher fuel cost scenario. And if we just looked at the fuel cell, we're more likely to be looking at the lower cost scenario over time. Is that a fair paraphrase of what you said?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I jump in and just ask a follow-up to that while we're sort of on this?
Sure.
And I won't ask it at the end. So we haven't, unless I remember, I mean, let me just ask it the most simplest way would the diesel buses be more expensive than these when we took into account all the funding relief, the MTC, and I mean, are there incentives that we're going to get to go electric in either case? And is this just a cheaper option compared to what we would do if we stuck with diesel? Not even saying that's an option. I'm just curious now.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I would actually have to let Michael Ortone speak to MTC's engagement, but here, so, because I don't know actually what they supply for not zero emission, we're pretty hyper focused. This is your baseline is as if you continued business as usual. And so it is much cheaper just because these new technologies are so expensive, but you can see that the maintenance costs are comparable. The fuel costs are semi-comparable. And when you get into the LCFS revenue and kind of potential of the market, they're comparable. So I guess let's have a look at this slide where we have.
I'm just wondering if there's going to be a disincentive to buy diesel, and in the end, this is going to not only be a better for our environment option, but perhaps a better economic decision as well. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but I was just curious if in the end, this is, you know, a win-win, as they say.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question. So we're projecting the capital expenditure around 30 and 27 for the technologies with MCC support. And for your baseline, it's at 97. So that's very apt. If assuming there's no support or incentive for those diesel hybrids, which there might be because they're hybrids, then yeah, these would have it'd be cheaper to go zero emission, which I've never said.
But we have a mandate, do we not, that our purchases, percentage of our purchases have to be zero emission, not our 100% of our purchases until the, 2029, but a percentage of them have to be completely zero emission, which a hybrid bus would not fulfill, correct?
That's right. So 25% in 2026, 27, and 28 will have to be fully zero emission.
So we have to pick one of these regardless.
Yeah, of course.
Just-
Yeah, it was more of just a question that I wanted to see if that was, thank you for the answer. And yes, I understand. This is, no one's more on board with this than I am.
Understood. Any other questions while we're at a pause? Okay, take it away, Savannah.
All right, so I'll actually give it to Tone. So we're going to cover the LAVTA staff recommendations again, and he's provided some performance data. So I'll hand it over to him for the next 2 slides.
Thanks, Savannah. Do you mind going back to the last slide? Just might want to make one quick comment. So this slide shows the best and worst case scenario between the 2 scenarios. And as you can see, financially, there's about $3 million difference between these 2 options over a 20-year horizon. So from the staff's perspective, I think financially it makes sense. And if you go to the next slide, and when you look at in terms operationally, it's night and day. With fuel cell, it provides the least disruptive option. It's basically switching out a hybrid with a hybrid. Because you only worry about the range issue or the fueling time issue. And additionally, I don't want to go through each bullet because I went through it last time, but I want to make a note that in terms of performance, the vehicles, the fuel cell vehicles are much more reliable. So I'll go into the next slide to talk about the data. So this is a data set extrapolated from the AC Transit zero emission. They have a long name for it, ZETBTA, and that stands for Zero Emission Transit Bus Technology Analysis, where they compare 5 different technology types. So this, in the last meeting, Vice Chair Bonanno asked for the definition of fleet availability and fleet reliability. So the way the report defines fleet availability is a measurement of the vehicle readiness status for the morning pull out at 7 a.m. So basically they look at how many vehicles were scheduled that day versus how many vehicles were actually available to operate service in that day for fleet availability. And then monitoring roll call is an indicator that measures the vehicle miles traveled between mechanical roll calls. So basically seeing how long the vehicle traveled before it experienced a mechanical roll calls. So for the data set between July 2020 and December 2020, you can see that the fleet availability for BEV is at 57% versus 90% for fuel cell. Similarly, on monitoring roll calls, it was 8,100 miles versus 10,400 miles. So operationally, I mean, this is a small sample size, but it's a good indicator to how the vehicle performs. Any question about the data, or are there any additional data that staff can gather that you would like to see?
No, just thank you for pulling these extra analyses together and showing them to us.
Okay. So I'll pass it back to Savannah.
Thank you. All right. So the next couple of slides, we just want to demonstrate that you're in good company in the hydrogen situation. And there's really three critical players in the market right now. So that's producers, distributors, and folks who own their own stations. So your peers. And we only focus on medium and heavy duty because we think, you know, that's appropriate to you all. So first, we have the producing sites listed here. So some of these last two are proposed, they're not yet built. But the top three are currently producing and supplying for folks using it as a fuel and hydrogen's other various uses that are not transportation related. So you have the south of California covered well as out of Sacramento, there is production of hydrogen. And sorry, the last one is actually two. So one in Butte County, and then the other one in Lancaster. Distribution centers. So this is more pertinent to you all. So first element is will have a storage and distribution center. It does have a storage and distribution center down the street from Atlantisport, and that is renewable hydrogen. There's also Shell's locations, Los Angeles, the Port of Long Beach, and Ontario. So those are really close together, but also producing pretty large amounts. And then Plug Power, again, has proposed a distribution very near their production, if not in the same area, a bit closer. Here are the piers, transit piers that have medium heavy duty fueling stations. So AC Transit has two, one at Emeryville, one at Oakland. Santa Ana at OCTA, they have a 50 bus station. Sunline, Thousand Palms station's been functional for years, and they're proposing to build in Indio a second station. So we always like that folks who have two, they liked it enough to do it twice. So those are good peers to have. And then First Element has Oakland, Fresno, and Livermore as stations that are fueling. And then Golden Empire is currently building theirs. North County is building theirs, and so is Foothill. So last time we chatted, we showed a kind of a flow chart. We've since revised it and brought it down just to show you the process of kind of what it takes to get to a deployment scenario and what are the fail safes for a deployment scenario at LAVTA. So in the beginning, there's a purchase or an RFP for vehicles for 12 vehicles. The purchase is issued, bus production begins, bus delivery, bus testing and acceptance occurs, and then you have service concurrently. Supposing that there's a capital award provided, you would run a study based on hydrogen requirements. So what kind of station do you need and how much output do you need? And then go to RFP to get a customized station built. Station contracting, station construction, all of that happens in a standard procurement process and build concurrent to the bus production. So that's about 18 to 24 months for both of them. Luckily, they're timed similarly. And we do put the 24 on to caution for the supply chain issues that we've been seeing. So that has been factored in. Additionally, hydrogen requires upgrades to maintenance facilities to work on them safely without having to defuel the bus. And so those have to occur as well in order to provide maintenance. And then again, you would commission the station and the bus together. And so if there's no capital award, luckily enough, you're well poised to continue with the deployment. You would have to do the maintenance bay upgrades to your existing site, supposing you're not building a new one. And then you'd have to get into a fueling arrangement with a neighbor in order to have fuel supply available in the interim while you ultimately work towards building your station. So this is just kind of a demo of what the project process would look like were you to elect this pathway and go forward with it. Another thing we wanted to talk a little bit is a little bit about financial risk or kind of lack thereof. So we went ahead and just listed out all the places you might find money to support this transition. CTE often goes after these with partner agencies. We've got a lot of experience in pointing people to where the money is for something like this, because it really serves the mission of cleaner air. And so This is an exhaustive list. It could have a couple things missing because we don't have the new programs that are coming from the infrastructure bill and all of that completely understood and listed out. But generally the takeaway here is that that pathway I showed you, where you can really go on this route, the dark blue route with a capital award, it seems likely that there's capital available to do this. And so we just wanted to make sure that that list was somewhere for you all to review. And so just next steps, I'll send that back to Tone, but I'm done and ready for questions after that.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for that very thorough and yet relatively speedy presentation for us, since we've seen a lot of that information before. I'll bring it back for clarifying questions and then discussion. Member Brown?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Savannah. You were always the first to go, okay, you're probably going to ask this, so I'm going to offer that information up ahead. But I didn't really want to get onto my phone too much. So I wonder if you could just help me. When you talk about fuel, is it equal, like dollars per mile? So that if it's a hydrogen bus, an electric bus, a hybrid bus, it isn't the cost per gallon, let's say, comparison, it's a fuel per mile.
That's right. So we use cost per mile to help you understand your operational budget, regardless of kind of the energy, the molecule packs itself. And so that does have a factor in it to equalize the efficiencies on the vehicles.
Terrific, thanks. And I wanted to just hats off to the organization that's going to put the fuel station, hydrogen fuel station first element. So clever up on the periodic table for hydrogen. And then I'm just curious, the technology, is it a combustion technology for hydrogen? Is there something there's a spark plug and something that is ignited to propel the bus forward?
It's a great question. So there's no ignition. It's an energy exchange. So what happens is the fuel cell itself takes the hydrogen in, and there's really great graphics. I wish I'd put one in here. But basically it splits. Hydrogen always is paired to itself. It only has one valence electron, so it's very reactive. This is why you kind of always see it as H2 and never as H1. And so they're paired together, but the way the fuel cell works is it splits them off, gets them really excited, and uses that one electron to go ahead and go back to the batteries and make the drivetrain go, basically, with that power. And then on the other end, they'll bond back together with available oxygen that's just in the ambient environment, and you'll get H2O out of the tailpipe. So you'll no longer have kind of these excited hydrogens, because now they have an oxygen carrying them together.
Oh, interesting. Is the weight of the bus as well as the size of the engine similar to a combustion engine? So are we able to reduce the bus size because the engine's smaller in any way?
So there's no engine anymore. You don't have that, but instead you're carrying a lot more fuel on board. So you'll have 4 hydrogen tanks on the top of the vehicle. And then you've got a pretty powerful battery there as well, because you want to have backup storage. And the battery helps also push the drivetrain forward. So those electrons have to be stored somewhere. Unfortunately, you don't get any extra space savings in the transit models we've seen today. Just because there's other things that replace that engine. But the manufacturers are required to meet the transit market. So you won't get too heavy a vehicle and you won't get too large a vehicle, basically.
And last question, since fuel tanks are on top, does the bus sit down a little bit lower?
It does not, no. So they're type 4 composite tanks. They're not so heavy, and hydrogen itself is very, very light. So they're not kind of adding a weight burden on as much as like a battery pack on the floor might. But no, they look just like your standard transit buses.
Interesting. Okay, and then last comment, since I know I'll try to make it a clarifying question, but we 5 mayors in the Tri-Valley had a meeting with Nuria Fernandez. She's the Assistant Secretary for the Federal Transit Administration, and she is very familiar with our own Michael Tree. So he has made great reputation in Washington, D.C. as he talks about transit, is especially for hydrogen. So I just wanted to put in that plug. But I just wanted to pass along that FTA is very excited about moving hydrogen forward, and as well as, this program. So Livermore was represented, of course, Dublin was represented in these meetings, and they're extremely supportive. So yay, and good job, Michael. Made a great impression.
Excellent.
Great.
Does anyone else have questions? Okay, I think that that's a sign that this was a really well done presentation and that we are all enthusiastically on board, I believe. Does anyone have discussion points they want to make, or are we ready to have a motion to accept staff's recommendation? Because I think that we are all there. Oh, I'm sorry, Director Bonanno.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank again both LAVTA's team, as everyone has already said, as well as CTE, and also particularly thank them for their presentation to the Livermore City Council. It was really well received. I know the council members and Mayor Warner were really happy to have you guys taking the time to do that. And as Tone mentioned earlier, I'm very confident that they are on board with the fuel cell recommendation as well. So that's where I'll close. I just want to make sure I pass that along from the Livermore City Council.
Great. And with that, would you like to make the recommendation that we follow staff's request and recommend this?
I would love to make that recommendation.
Jean,
Yes?
we have one hand raised in the public. I don't know if you want to take.
Yes, we should definitely take that public comment before we make a motion. Please.
Okay, let me go ahead and allow him to talk a moment.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, Jennifer, to introduce myself, I am the chairman for the advisory committee for LAVTA's Wheels Advisory. And
Yes.
I'm very impressed on this program already, and I'm already going to ask a question that's probably way too far ahead of schedule. But as the staff usually knows me, involvement of the eventual design of the procedures of the vehicles themselves. I'm already asking for the ability of, prior to the production, that the TVAC advisory committee be involved in the interior designs for the accessibility issues of the vehicles, because many of the members here are very aware of users that we have on the advisory committee. So I'm putting out that it would be very beneficial before, I assume it's in the phase of production phase, before they're constructed, is that the advisory committee become involved in the discussion before you buy these buses, and then I find all the bugs after the fact. That's my comment.
Thanks, Herb. And I think it's a great comment that we want to make sure that whatever buses we add to our fleet are absolutely accessible and that we are not, pardon the pun, bumping up against any of the problems that we've had on any of the previous buses with the oversized wheelchairs and things like that. I'm pretty sure staff will be happy to accommodate that. I don't want to speak for them, but I'm seeing Michael nodding his head. Any comments from staff on that?
No, if we're shooting for delivery of buses in 2025, we'll probably be ordering them in late 2023. So as we go to order them, that's where we'll start talking to the manufacturer, whoever that might be, about design layout on the interior and wheelchair accessibility features of the bus. So yeah, would be happy to stay tuned and have the technical advisory committee help us with that.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
I don't see anybody else with their hand raised.
Great, thank you. We'll close public comment and go back to committee member Bonanno, who was about to make a motion, I believe.
Yes, I'd be happy to move that we recommend to the LAVTA Board of Directors that we move forward with the zero emission bus transition plan based on the hydrogen fuel cell technology.
Wonderful. We have a second?
Yes, I'd like to second that motion with emphasis, and we're forwarding this on to the board for evaluation.
Wonderful. Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Enthusiastically, aye. It's unanimous. We are moving forward. Wonderful. Excellent. Our next item on our agenda is Executive Director's Report.
All right. I think there's just a few things that are on my mind, kind of top of mind. Certainly that grant that we're submitting to the state. This puts us right on track. It's a really collaborative grant with Contra Costa Transportation Authority, their congestion management agency in Contra Costa County, and County Connection and LAVTA. There's several agencies really coming together on the ask for the hydrogen infrastructure. So this is great. We're excited to continue that grant. It'll be due in early March, and we should hear probably in June, July about the outcome of that grant, whether we're awarded funding. So we'll have that in front of the board soon to talk about that grant and what the ask is. But in short, it's our maintenance facility and the hydrogen fueling station. The maintenance facility, all costs included, is about 24 million, and your hydrogen fueling station with capacity to fuel 75 to 100 buses, take care of your future needs, about 8 million. I just wanted to mention COVID. I think it's been on everybody's mind, and it's been a rough couple of months. We're currently doing okay at LAVTA. We've got one customer service representative out with COVID, and then one admin staff member that's out on quarantine due to exposure. So we've been able to hobble along just fine from a LAVTA agency perspective. And then in the operations department, which is your operators and your mechanics and so on, we have just one operator out at the moment with COVID. And so we've been able to handle what's going on there with accommodating that and getting all the service out onto the road. So I think we're doing okay. And as long as COVID is kind of maybe on the downhill slide, we continue to watch it closely, but are pretty cautiously optimistic about, providing all the service that we promised to the public at the moment. Not on your agenda today was your paratransit survey. It's a pretty robust survey, 284 respondents, really great results, and a lot of open-ended questions or a lot of open-ended answers from questions on the survey. So we'll have that on your PNS committee agenda next month, so that you can take a look at that. And then I think at the last meeting, there was the brilliant idea, I think, from Tony and some dialogue from Mayor Brown in regard to a potential John Madden wrap that could really endure the agency and some sponsors to the community with that. So Tony, I think you're still on, and if you have any additional information you want to share, I know you've been working on that a lot, and it looks pretty promising as kind of all the pieces are coming together. But I know that there were a couple of board members at least that were intrigued by that idea.
Sometimes I think I'll learn to leave my mute button on because you never know what you're going to find yourself doing for the next month. But I've learned more about John Madden and about the purchasing and licensing of images in the last month than I think I have in a long time. And the fact that Getty Images seems to own every picture that's ever been taken. I'm not sure that I have the rights to even pictures I've taken of my kid. So, and all of those are up for sale. For lease, I would say, not for sale. And so I'm in discussions, email discussions with Lamar, our advertising, onboard advertising company that produces and installs the ads. The cost for that part to produce and install a complete wrap is about $7,500. The cost for a really nice quality image of John Madden, the one we're looking at is the one when the Raiders won the Super Bowl and he's getting carried off the field. That one is $3,000 for 3 months and $5,000 for 2 years. So we're somewhere in the $10,000 to $12,000 range for a fully wrapped bus. They did a mock-up design preliminary for me. Lamar did for free. And so I made some edits to that. And then Getty Images would like to see the mock-up, the final mock-up, before they get approvals from the NFL and the Raiders and whoever else needs to approve it. And then I've asked Lamar if they would reach out to some of our advertisers like Barron's Jewelers, who do a lot of half-side wraps on our buses, to see if they might want to serve as the sponsor, because a $10,000 price tag, for them, it might be good publicity, and we could do something like have the unveiling event in front of their store in Dublin, and might get them some press. So working on it. We'll see what comes of it. Any questions on it?
I think that's great. And with all this knowledge, next time one of us has a harebrained idea, you'll already know how to do it. That's great.
I know the next time I won't bring it up myself. That's for sure.
Mayor Brown, did you have a comment?
Sure, we'll think of a different harebrained idea, Gene. But that's
Thanks.
okay.
Well, I don't know. David Hubbard knows a lot of wealthy people, so maybe he's got some ideas too. But I just want to thank Tony. I had no idea that this was such a big ask, because we know we talked a little bit offline as well as online. But as we know, John Madden didn't want to fly on planes. He always took buses. And we just thought this is a real eye catcher to be able to highlight Mr. Madden as well as our bus system. So if the jewelry company wants to do it, that would be fabulous. I know somebody, a friend of a friend that's up in the Raiders business too. So jewelry company doesn't come out too. Let me see if I can make a contact there, because riding around on our Pleasanton, Dublin, Livermore streets with John Madden on the bus, I think will be huge for us as well. So it's a win-win-win all the way around, to use Gina Bonanno's term earlier. And I think we're somebody that has really served our community with great pride. And it would be nice to reciprocate if possible.
Lamar was nice enough to do a mock-up design at no charge. So that was really helpful to be able to visualize what it would look like. And it looks pretty darn nice. We did it in Raiders silver, black, and white colors, and it's an attractive looking wrap.
All right, we should have the Raiders while they're in Las Vegas. Okay, all right, thank you, Tony, again.
Mr. Halbert, did you have a comment?
Would you please send me that mock-up, and then give me a little time, and we'll close this out. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Will do.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that particular item? Mr. Tree, did you have more for us?
I don't.
Okay, fantastic. So we're on.
I
to
certainly
item
don't.
7. I'm sure we'll come up with something else for you, Tony.
What do you say? Harebrained ideas.
we know how you hate to be bored, my friend. With that, we'll move on to item 7, which is preview of upcoming committee agenda items. Anything you would like to highlight for us?
Maybe I got ahead of myself. You'll see your customer service survey with the paratransit next month. And then from there, the ZEB rollout plan and a couple of contract and MOUs coming up in the near future as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Matters initiated by the committee members. Does anybody have anything they would like to bring up? Okay, not seeing any hands. We will adjourn until our next meeting, which is February 28th. We'll adjourn at 4:54. Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Absolutely, stay healthy.